What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review an EP by White Zombie. Basically, this project is called God of Thunder, and it came out in the fall of 1989. Now, this is a pretty large project. This is similar stuff to like Los Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1. It's the same type of groove metal that was found on that particular project. Now, that project came out in 1992. I reviewed that recently. It's a good taste of White Zombie there. Definitely some good concepts that they had on that project. Gave that project a pretty rave score, but this project's actually even better than that. I would have to say, despite the fact that it only has 3 songs, both of these albums, Lost Exorcisto and then this God of Thunder project, are two excellent kind of 1-2 punches to kind of get of some White Zombie in their prime. And that's kind of surprising because I initially thought that I was going to like Astro Creep 2000 more just because I really enjoyed that electronic type style that they did with that particular album. Despite the fact that they didn't have a ton more projects like it, I do feel like that was some pretty glossy stuff for that most recent batch of Rob Zombie or White Zombie kind of songs. That's definitely kind of the thing there, but this is some good stuff. This is one of the more recent White Zombie projects. Now there were like several EPs that came out throughout the 80s, and then they had a couple albums that came out in the 80s also that were before this particular project. But I would have to say I haven't quite listened to Make Them Die Slowly yet, but I do eventually want to get to that one and some other ones as far as that's kind of concerned. But I like this one just because it had a cover song of a Kiss song on here. So this I wanted to get to this project because it has a cover song of a Kiss song on here, which is God of Thunder. That was originally a Kiss song from like their 1976 album Destroyer. So it's interesting enough. I wanted to see how White Zombie handles cover songs and that type of stuff, and they handle it pretty well. This is just an overall excellent package. Definitely one I would recommend getting if you can find it as far as that's kind of concerned, because it's just a brief, real kind of extremely brief packaging, but it's just worth. This is a really brief and kind of brief packaging of a project with only 3 short songs on here, but it's definitely worth the value of it. This is definitely some excellent stuff, and despite the shortness, I still think that this is basically like a pretty high quality one just to kind of fuck with. And it's just more groove metal, very similar to Lost Exorcisto, same kind of vibes. Definitely like the approach towards it, and it's just another classic kind of vintage project from White Zombie. So it's really, out of the 3 projects I've listened to them, all 3 of them have been pretty excellent. Like I don't remember Astro Creep 2000s much, but I would have to say that's a pretty quality one just based upon the singles like Supercharger Heaven and then More Human Than Human and some of those type ones. But I definitely have to say this is some quality stuff. So I'm not really sure if there was a single off this project, but I'm going to assume that it was God of Thunder, the Kiss cover. I'm not sure if there was a single off this project, but I'm going to assume that it was God of Thunder just because that's the Kiss song that this project is named after and that type of stuff. So that's some interesting stuff. But we'll go ahead and talk about this. Just to say the 3 songs I recommend. So basically I recommend all 3 of the songs on this project. So that basically means it's going to get a 10 out of 10. But to talk about God of Thunder is a vintage rock hit. I would say it's an excellent sludgy hangout gem, and I would definitely have to say it's a great 80s kickback tune and snackage tune. So this is some good stuff to kind of have here for just like pretty much just something you would hear out of a movie when the main characters are kind of lounging and that type of stuff. Just something that really feels like 80s kind of riff heavy type stuff. Just really, it's not really cheesy 80s, but I kind of look after it as just kind of real lackadaisical. Almost feels like hair metal in a sense. It's really kind of sludgy and just really kind of sludgy and darker oriented. This really kind of reminds me of some kickback kind of tunes, definite snackage, getting pretzels and Chex Mix and Pepsi and those type things. Just maybe beers if you're of age, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. Just some good hangout kind of moments. Just an excellent kind of one overall. Makes me wonder what the original Kiss song from the 70s was like, because this is just really this has such a lazy kind of lightly heavy, but just kind of more lazy kind of blossomed kind of kickback kind of tune as far as that kind of goes. It's really kind of relaxed and mellow for the most part. Just kind of a halfway point between edgy and mellow, I would have to say. It's kind of got that edge towards it, but it's also a little bit more lazed and malaise as far as that kind of goes. It's a good concept of one. Definitely like that one. And then the other 2 songs on here, Love Razor and Disaster Blaster 2, are also some excellent ones. So Love Razor is a good entry night venue. Love Razor has some good entry night venue moments, I would say. It's got affable riffs and packaging, definitely, and it's got some nice drums and band work. So this is just an overall good one. Definitely reminds me, I mean, this is kind of a lengthier song, but the beginning of the song definitely reminds me. Love Razor is kind of a lengthier song, but the beginning of the song definitely reminds me of like some night venue kind of dap getting, this initial kind of fraternizing and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's very much, the band does a great job on this particular song, I would have to say. It's just an excellent kind of one to kind of have the riffs and just the overall engagement factor. This is pretty high. This one's a little bit more edgy compared to God of Thunder. It's a little bit, I mean, they're both, I mean, God of Thunder is pretty riff heavy, but that one's just kind of more of like a sprawling out kind of hangout tune. But this is kind of one that's just kind of a little bit more excitable and just kind of perked up a bit, but still kind of entry compared to the songs on here, or compared to the heaviest song on here, which is Disaster Blaster 2. That's the riff heavy kind of headbanging one, but this one's kind of like the entry. Love Razor is kind of like the entry, just kind of dap getting one, just being at a night venue, initially showing up and just fraternizing some of that type stuff. But Disaster Blaster 2 is definitely an excellent one. This is a good night venue hangout type tune, I would say. It's got menacing riffage on there. Disaster Blaster 2 is a good night venue hangout, definitely. It's got menacing riffage, I would definitely have to say, and it's just got some cool breeze kind of vibes for like a regular night. So it's definitely kind of an excellent one on here. This one's pretty heavy. It's just kind of similar to like Thunder Kiss 65. The riff heaviness on Disaster Blaster 2 is pretty similar to like Thunder Kiss 65. Has that same kind of heaviness as far as that kind of goes. Just an excellent kind of concept to get some of these. It's probably the heaviest song on here. Disaster Blaster 2 is probably the heaviest song on here, like I was saying, but they're all good songs. They're all basically good night venue kind of hangout type tunes. I feel like God of Thunder is the most hangout ready. Love Razor is the most entry kind of ready one as far as just like being at a night venue or something like that. Not quite as local, but just kind of more stepping out a bit and just the entry stuff. But it does have some good band work. And then Disaster Blaster 2 is like the radio ready one that's just kind of got the riff heaviness and it's the most metal prone one on here. And considering that this was all from the 80s, this is really some excellent stuff. So this is before like White Zombie had their widespread appeal from like the 90s, as far as like Los Exorcisto kind of catapulted them to MTV and like more regular mainstream rock kind of stardom as far as that kind of went. But I would have to say it's just some good stuff here. I like the kind of initial kind of underground kind of dap that this, I like the initial kind of underground fanfare that this project particularly kind of got. It's just some excellent stuff to kind of see on here. So yeah, I'm going to give this EP, so yeah, I'm going to give this EP like a 10 out of 10. Definitely some excellent stuff on here. The social score gets a 10 out of 10 also. There's just some excellent overall kind of moments, just good kind of vibes, and it's just like a kind of bonus package to throw in with Los Exorcisto. Definitely have to recommend that one as far as that. Definitely have to recommend that one as far as that's kind of concerned. So this is a good 1-2 punch. Yeah, I would have to say that Los Exorcisto and God of Thunder are an excellent kind of 1-2 punch for just some good groove metal from White Zombie, and especially considering that this project came out of the 80s, it's just some good fanfare because this was kind of before they had blown up entirely. So I do like the concept of seeing this sort of stuff, just how edgy they kind of had things panned out, and just the concept of just, because a lot of this is just hangout kind of tunes. That's kind of the stuff. It's just a lot more low key, kind of localized, or just not. And when you think of night venue stuff, I think in some cases it's kind of more hole in the wall, just kind of more sleazy kind of sludge as far as that's kind of concerned. But I do like the concept just because this project is out of the 80s. It kind of has some of that hair metal type feel about it, which is kind of interesting, more so than like the kind of more sci-fi type stuff that they did in like the 90s as far as that kind of went. So it's just kind of, where it is groove metal, but it's just kind of like an early kind of rough draft and kind of primer type stuff for what they would do with Los Exorcisto. It was just the same kind of concept. So this is some good stuff here, definitely. There's some good edgy hangout music. So yeah, in terms of the future, like White Zombie has broken up, and I think for the most part, in terms of the future, White Zombie is broken up, but Rob Zombie does have a solo career, and I'm going to get to some more of Rob Zombie's albums. But this is a pretty excellent packaging here, I would have to say, and it's a good project to recommend overall.